Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives, and today we're going to be discussing episodes 145 and 146 of Steven Universe. Now we're only falling apart, and what's your problem? So, to recap, when we last left Steven and the Crystal Gems, Steven was having some issues regarding his mother. Specifically, after one particular diamond dream, he began to wonder if the one who shattered Pink Diamond was actually his mom or not. His suspicions immediately went to Pearl, as his dream seemed to imply that she was the perpetrator. However, when Steven wound up questioning Pearl about this, she wound up clamming up, even more so than she would before. Sorry, Chindi came in. But as such, However, Pearl did seem to offer Steven a lead, as he wound up getting a text from her phone telling him that there are things she wants to tell Steven, but she can't. Steven took this as a sign that she wanted to talk, but when he questioned Pearl about it, she was clueless, and it turned out that she hadn't used her phone since she put in her gem earlier, but for whatever reason she was getting text through it. As such, Pearl kind of seems to change her mood a little, as she tells Steven that there are some things she can't tell him, but what she can tell him is that she needs her phone back. As such, she sends Steven into her gem in order to retrieve it, and after going through layers upon layers of Pearl's consciousness, which in this case represent different layers of her own traumatic memories, he eventually ends up in the location of where Pearl's phone is, and it turns out that the phone is in a very telling memory. One that reveals that Rose Quartz was actually Pink Diamond, and that Rose shattering Pink thing was just a facade that Pink Diamond and her Pearl, which is the Pearl that we know, had set up together, with Pearl with Pearl pretending to be Rose, while Pink Diamond just allowed herself to be poofed with just gem shards that she had swallowed that were made from the dirt outside her palanquin to kind of impersonate her gem. As such, Steven was pulled out of Pearl with the phone, and he let Pearl know that he knew this information, right as Garnet and Amethyst are right there, which is where Now We're Only Falling Apart picks up, as Steven and Pearl are essentially just explaining this whole situation to Amethyst and Garnet, and yeah, Amethyst is just freaking out as she's just trying to wrap her head around all of this. She's going nuts. She's going nuts, and again, Pearl explains that she was sworn to secrecy by Pink Diamond, so she wasn't allowed to talk about it. She was not allowed to speak of it. After all, like I said, every time she wanted to bring it up, her hands wound up covering her mouth, and she sadly had to clam up whether she wanted to or not. But since Steven now knows about it and can actively share the information, then that means she doesn't have to be quiet anymore. The very thing that made the order necessary, namely keeping it all secret, is now moot. So she can talk about it as much as she wants now, and so now she's sharing that information, and so now she can tell the rest of the gems. As such, Amethyst is, while still confused about it, at least feels some relief that they can finally get to actually know these factoids. But Garnet's not taking it very well. So much so that after they are finished telling her all this, she gets up and she's visibly shaking as she just says in a low voice, "Rose, Rose," at which point she takes a few steps away from the group, and as she tries hugging herself, she unfuses back into Ruby and Sapphire, with Sapphire, of all people, yelling that Rose lied to them. And you can tell that they are hurt when it's Sapphire that's the one losing her shit rather than Ruby. In fact, Ruby's the one that's trying to be the voice of reason in this situation, as Ruby's trying to calm Sapphire down, get them to think things through, but Sapphire is not thinking logically for once. In fact, she's just yelling that she thought that they were lied to, that Rose betrayed them, that she told them that she and Ruby never questioned what they were, that she never looked into Rose because they trusted her, they listened to her. They never questioned anything because she told them that this is what they were supposed to be, and Ruby's just saying, "But we couldn't have known." But Sapphire's like, "No. You couldn't have known. I'm supposed to know, but I never looked into her. I never did." And yeah, it's clear Sapphire feels betrayed. And to make matters worse, her and Ruby's whole relationship as Garnet was kind of built on how, well, Rose told them to never question what they were, to enjoy it, to just kind of embrace it. And yet, they're now wondering if this is all just a lie. This is just a cruel trick that she was playing on them. And that essentially makes Sapphire question her whole relationship with Ruby. So much so that she has to leave. And what makes it better is that in her emotional distress, she's completely iced over the floor so nobody can follow her. As such, she ends up going to the warp pad and just warps away somewhere. And ultimately, she just leaves Ruby behind, with Ruby just on her knees crying. It's very sad. As such, Pearl and Steven tell Ruby to just stay there. They'll deal with it. And Steven and Pearl end up taking the warpad and begin looking for Sapphire, and they eventually find her by the fountain, the one that's supposed to have an endless stream of Rose's tears of Rose's healing tears, and the whole place is just iced over now in winter, as Sapphire's emotional state has completely covered it all, and she's just again and she just feels, well, she feels fooled, lied to, and justifiably so. After all, they followed Rose to the ends of the earth. They fought in the war. They did all these dangerous and harrowing things for Rose. And now she learns that Rose was technically the enemy. Rose essentially leading an army to fight herself. And yeah, it makes it just kind of breaks Sapphire a little, as she's just like, she's essentially like, what was it all for? What was the point? Was it all just some sick game? Of course she'd be well, now it's obvious that she's a diamond. Only a diamond would do something this cruel. It's actually pretty heartbreaking. As such, Steven and Pearl try to comfort Sapphire and tell her, no, that wasn't what it was like. She clearly did care for people. And so Pearl decides, okay, I think it's time you learn the full story. And so we actually get a flashback story here, as Pearl begins telling the story of how Pink Diamond became Rose Quartz. And it all started with, well, Pink Diamond getting Earth as her first base. Yeah, basically, well, although one important thing about the story is that it turns out that Pearl was not Pink Diamond's original Pearl. Apparently, Pink Diamond had gotten the Pearl we know 1,000 years prior, and Pearl's job was just to, keep Pink Diamond happy. Though sadly, for whatever reason, Pearl could never really do that, and it wasn't even help. And when Pink Diamond finally was given Earth, well, it didn't help in any regard either, as Pink Diamond is just kind of, well, she's bored, like very bored. She's just kind of she's sitting in her moon base, just looking through all the structures that they need to build on Earth, and you can tell she's no idea what she's doing. She's looking at all these things. She feels like it's all daunting, and when Pink Diamond even catches Pearl looking at her, Pearl just looks away, feeling embarrassed that she's actually that her diamond is even looking at her. And while Pink Diamond does try to engage her in conversations, like, could you imagine how boring this all is? Well, you gotta remember at this point in time, Pearl is not the person we know. This Pearl is very much like any other Pearl in Homeworld. Subservient, wanting to do anything to please her master. And so when Pink Diamond asks her, hey, could you have imagined what this was like? She's like, I could if you want me to, my diamond, which just makes Pink Diamond go, ugh. However, she does want Pearl to check in on the status of the kindergarten, and Pearl ends up and after interfacing with the moon base's systems, Pearl is able to let her know, okay, the first Quartz soldiers are beginning to emerge, which excites Pink Diamond for like you would not believe, and she wants to see it personally. As she and Pearl end up going down to the room below to that viewing platform that Steven and Lapis used during Can't Go Back, and so Pearl is able to interface with that and is able to show her and Pink Diamond a view of the kindergarten. As they see that Quartz soldiers are emerging, which just makes Pink Diamond all ecstatic, like, oh, I can't wait! It's nice to see you. Welcome to Earth. But, because this is really just a hologram, that all she can do is to see. No one can actually see her, and it again gets to her. And she just kind of wishes that she could, go down to the kindergarten and actually just talk to these people. Just hang out with them, have fun, because it's kind of getting dull up here. And while Pearl says, well, they could just warp there at any point, well, Pink knows that if she went down at all, she would never hear the end of it from Blue and Yellow Diamond. So she said, could you imagine... Like, could you imagine me going down there, hanging out with the court soldiers, and Pearl interprets this as Pink Diamond giving her a command, so she does begin imagining it and projecting it out through her gem. Just imagining Pink Diamond having fun with all the court soldiers, and she's like, "Oh, you look so happy." But even Pink's like, "Well, I wouldn't be so happy the instant that Pink and Yellow find out. How would I be able to do this without them catching me?" And so Pearl says they wouldn't catch you because you changed your shape for a day. You look exactly like a quartz. And Pink Diamond says, "That's a great idea, Pearl." And again, Pearl all thinks this is hypothetical, that the only reason that she's imagining this is because Pink Diamond ordered her to. Whereas Pink Diamond is taking this as a genuinely good idea, and so right in front of Pearl's eyes, she shapeshifts into rose quartz. Although what I like is that she's wearing her well, work uniform instead of the traditional white dress that we associate with Rose. But either way, yeah, Pink Diamond this is what led to the creation of the rose quartz persona. Pink wanted to essentially just escape for a day, have some fun, enjoy herself, and that's exactly what she does, as she and Pearl end up warping to the kindergarten, and Pink is just like a kid in a candy store. She's so excited to be there, see all these new quartz soldiers coming out, saying hi to them, and just enjoying being their presence. Hell, she goes over to the Amethyst squad that would eventually be our Amethyst squad, that is essentially the siblings to our Amethyst, and they're waiting around for the last two to pop out, and as the penultimate one pops out, Rose runs up to her and runs up to the Amethyst, is like, "Welcome to Earth." Welcome to Earth. It's like, wow, that's the first and nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. And likewise, before they can wait for the last Amethyst to come out, they're all cordoned off, and of course we know she's not going to be out for a while. But either way, yeah. Pink Diamond's having a ball. She loves being here. She loves being on Earth. Though Pearl does tell her to, to not draw too much attention to herself, because after all, they're here undercover. They don't want anyone to notice anything. So of course Rose has to keep it cool. Though she does still want to keep exploring. And so Pearl suggests, well, why don't they just see the rest of the planet? Why not take in more of the sights? After all, Earth is her colony. They can't just be delegated to this single kindergarten, right? And Rose just snatches that up, just snatches it up. And by the way, I apologize that I keep interchanging Pink Diamond and Rose Quartz as names. It's a Freudian slip sort of thing. So I'm trying to keep it straight, but just know when I talk about Pink Diamond or Rose Quartz, I'm talking about the same person. So apologies. But either way, yeah, even in the present day, Sapphire and Steven are like, so what? She just did this whole thing because she wanted to have fun. But Pearl does tell them, well, it was like that at first. And yeah, it turns out that when Pink Diamond and Pearl were exploring the Earth, much like within Garnet's story, Rose thought it was beautiful. She loved seeing the sights, the flowers, the local flora and fauna. Everything about it was just so wonderful and new to her. And she loved every second of it. She was having the time of her life. And Pearl was just happy seeing her Diamond actually happy, just smiling, enjoying herself. And made even better when they end up accidentally encountering some humans, as they see a group of humans just, or a family of humans just gathering food, and she's amazed by them. But seeing all this also puts everything that Pink Diamond is doing into perspective, as when she and Pearl return to the kindergarten, she quickly realizes something. They're the baddies. She realized, because earlier in the episode, she talked about how it was amazing what they were doing on Earth. They were creating life from nothing. But seeing everything on Earth, she's like, no, we're taking life and leaving nothing behind. It's actually pretty horrific, and I actually love just how quickly Rose's demeanor changes when she's made privy to this fact, as she realizes, we are killing this planet. We are gutting it, and if we do it, nothing on this planet will survive. And she didn't like that. She didn't like it one bit. And while Pearl apologizes to Rose for showing her all this, Rose just calms down saying, no, I'm needed to see all this. Thank you. As such, this is what ultimately leads to the creation of the crystal gem rose quartz, the one that led the rebellion. Well, because here's the thing, and it didn't, and which even Sapphire's like, well, then what? She just let her run to all this conflict, and why didn't you even include us? And Pearl confirms that wasn't her intent at all. Like, originally, Pink Diamond did try to use her status as a diamond to just end all of this. Just put it all to bed and just abandon Earth. Essentially, just leave it as it is, and just let it try and just kind of move on to some other planet. But her siblings were not having any of it. She tried going to Yellow Diamond, but Yellow Diamond just blew her off, pretty much saying, "You started this, you gotta finish it," which again does track with previous episodes that we've seen. And then likewise, when she even wound up going to Blue Diamond and saying, "No, look, I want to try and preserve the people, the lives of the species on this planet." Blue Diamond interpreted that as, "Oh, okay, so you just want to preserve them. Okay, we'll set up the zoo." Which, yeah, that's what led to the creation of the human zoo, because Pink Diamond wanted to preserve the life on this planet, and they interpreted that as, "Okay, so you just want to get the people. All right, we'll just get a few and just put them over here like pets." Yeah, pretty much Pink Diamond did everything that she could as a diamond, pleaded with her siblings to just let this all end, but they wouldn't let her stop. Because after all, she wanted this colony. She had to see it through to the end, whether she wanted to or not. And so, basically, she was just blown off, and she did not take kindly to that. And so she decided, fine, if they're just going to ignore Pink Diamond, then I'll give them someone that they can't ignore. Which is what led to her transforming the Rose Quartz persona into an identity for rebellion. Now, her original intent was not to overthrow the Gem Empire. Her plan was to essentially Scooby-Doo the Gem Empire. She'd take on the persona of Rose Quartz, and her intent was just to, scare all the gems off of Earth. She and Pearl would just adopt disguises, and because, again, Pink Diamond was, well, a diamond, no one would suspect anything if something were to occur. If no one saw Pink Diamond for long stretches of time. After all, she's royalty. This is her colony. She's probably on the moon doing God knows what. So it was perfect cover. But ultimately, Rose's mission changed one day. Specifically, the day she met Garnet. Because, after all, she just wanted to get rid of the gems before. But then she saw a fusion of two very different gems, creating an entirely new form of life. And in that moment, that's what allowed Rose and Pearl to escape from a potential ambush. And when Rose saw this, she realized, "Oh my God! I did not know we could do that." And she's just Rose just marveled at it. Was so excited by it, by the possibility of two different types of gems being able to fuse like that. And she's like, "How did I never hear of this? I only ever heard that it's unheard of." And she's just like geeking out. But in the midst of all this, Pearl tries to fuse with Rose, so she picks her up, and they both just plop over, with Pearl immediately apologizing for all this and basically talking about how she's not thinking the way she's supposed to be thinking, that she should be replaced right away, which the instant Rose hears that, she's like, no, which, yeah, Pearl starts opening up. It turns out throughout all this, she's been changing herself, as she talked about how she had begun imagining things even when told not to, about how she liked to pretend that she wasn't actually Rose's, that she was a Pearl that ran away, and who wound up meeting Rose, and who, just even if she wasn't her Pearl, she made her so happy that she liked to pretend she was. And Pearl even goes, "Yeah, isn't that silly? Tell me to I should stop. Please tell me to stop." And Rose just grabs Pearl and says, "Don't ever stop. Ever." And in that single moment of connection, they nearly fuse into rainbow quartz. Well, although they immediately unfuse as they both realize, oh shit. And that kind of hits Rhodes with another double whammy, because she realizes, oh shit, we left the fusion behind. What Blue's gonna do something to her? But that's also when Rose and Pearl wound up running into Garnet after she, had her tumble when Ruby and Sapphire actually wanted to be together. And, of course, the rest of the story from there. That's how she wound up joining the rebellion. As it turns out, Garnet is what convinced Rose to actually want to fight not just for Earth and all the life on it, but for gems themselves, because Garnet changed her perspective. She looked at this and realized gems can change too. They can grow. And it's what led to her recruiting all the gems that she could for the crystal gems. It's what led her to encouraging Garnet to embrace being a fusion. It's what led her to eventually recruiting Bismuth and telling her, "What do you want to do with your life?" It's, again, actually a really interesting take, and essentially Sapphire sums it up nicely. While the crystal gems may have believed they were following Rose, Rose was actually following them. She saw everything that they were doing and was inspired by it, and she wanted to see them grow, to change, to become something new, and it inspired Rose. And basically, hearing all this, it calms Sapphire down as she realizes, yeah, she did care about everybody, and ultimately, while a lot of what she did could be selfish or short-sighted, she did genuinely care about the crystal gems, and she wanted to encourage them to grow. And basically she never that's why she never really forced anyone to do anything they didn't want to, with the exception of Pearl. But even then, the extent of that was really the extent of that was telling her never speak of this again. So yeah, this does calm Sapphire down enough as she realizes she really was just clueless. She really did not mean any harm. She really didn't mean any harm. But which I love is that Sapphire even says, "Well, of course she wanted to. Of course she was following us. You swept her off you swept her off her feet." Which Pearl's like, "What?" And yeah, Steven talked about how, and yeah, it was intentionally kind of Sapphire's fault that Pink Diamond even wanted to stay on Earth like she did. And so basically, Sapphire just kind of Sapphire marvels at this and realizes that you made her so happy, you made her want to stay here. It's almost like how with me and Ruby, in which Sapphire quickly realizes, okay, yeah, I was kind of an asshole here. And she realizes, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said the things I did. I do still love Ruby, and I left her at the temple. We gotta go. And as such, she, Pearl, and Steven immediately just go back to the warpad to head back to the temple. And Sapphire just comes in immediately going to Ruby, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said the things I did." But Sapphire's not there. And the episode ends with with the trio finding a note on the floor addressed to Sapphire. Sorry, I also got mixed up. That's Ruby who wasn't the one that was there. Ruby is the one that wasn't there, and Ruby's the one that left a note for Sapphire. Sorry. Again, I get names mixed up all the time. I apologize. But that's what leads into the next episode, What's Your Problem? As the trio ends up picking up the note. And what I love is that the note clearly has, well, romantic intent, did have like hints of romantic intent behind it, as Sapphire's name is written as Sapphy before the RE is written down like just underneath. It's just written underneath it, and the note clearly was going to say love Ruby, but Ruby scribbled out the love part and just left Ruby. But so yeah, it's clear Ruby is still somewhat emotional over what happened, and the note is pretty much just telling Sapphire she needs time for herself, so she's running away, which breaks Sapphire's heart something fierce. As such, Pearl, Sapphire, and Steven are trying to immediately figure out where the hell could she have gone, and so they think, well, Amethyst was left here with Ruby, maybe she knows what's going on, and so they manage to find Amethyst on Steven's bed playing video games, and she pretty much just says she doesn't know where Ruby is. She just, like, Ruby a little while ago asked for a pen and paper, and while Amethyst gave it to her, after that she wasn't really concerned with what's going on. And so they let Amethyst know that Ruby is gone. They need to find her because they have to try and because Sapphire wants to make up for what she did. And what I love is that Sapphire is just getting emotional because she thinks that she essentially effed up one of the best things in her life. Though, of course, Steven tries to assure her it's fine, couldn't you use your future vision? And Sapphire does think she could, but there's the matter of Ruby's spontaneity. After all, Ruby was the one that originally showcased that Sapphire's future vision wasn't as infallible as she thought it was, and then Ruby is spontaneous, strange. She likes to make her own destiny. And what makes it even better is that when Sapphire does use her future vision to look for Ruby, she immediately just screams, "Why would she be a cowboy?" before just burying her face in Pearl's legs. At which point, Pearl tries comforting her, telling her, "No, come on, it's okay. You two will make up. You'll get back together. You have to get back together, or otherwise you won't become Garnet. And what are we gonna do without Garnet?" At which point, Pearl starts breaking down too, and she and Sapphire just start crying together. And I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's actually kind of funny. As such, Amethyst gets a little weirded out and just says, "How about you go and take this into the temple? Me and Steven are going to play video games." But Steven, being the ever-helpful kid he is, volunteers to go look for Ruby. And so he leaves the temple, and Amethyst, not wanting to be left behind with the two crying gems, ends up following after him. As such, the pair immediately start trying to go around Beach City to try and find Ruby. The first stop is oddly enough the ocean, because Steven said she could have only gone to the ocean or Beach City, which I love that the ocean is their first stop, but they couldn't find her there, so they go into Beach City. And part of the reason why they're looking so close to home is because, well, Ruby likes to be more literal with her phrasing. And when she said she was running away, odds are she was literally mean running, so she wouldn't warp away. So she has to be close by. However, as Steven and Amethyst are going about trying to look for Ruby, it seems like Amethyst isn't taking this as seriously as Steven. As the entire time they're going around looking for Ruby, she's constantly, goofing. Like, they go on a beach and she makes herself small to go into a conch shell because she wants to make a joke about having it be a summer home, which does kind of slightly annoy Steven. When they end up going to the boardwalk and go to Petey's, where they go to Petey's, Petey's tater tot truck, Amethyst gets like a whole crap ton of tater tots, but when she happily presents them to Steven, he just kind of ignores them. They go to Funland, and Amethyst and Steven are happily, and while Steven and Amethyst are on the teacup ride, Steven is throwing out more flyers looking for Ruby, while Amethyst is just having fun. And even when Amethyst ends up winning a ring toss game and tries to share her prize with Steven, he just ignores it. And it all finally comes to a head when they go to Fish Stew Pizza, and once again they can't find Ruby, but Steven says, well, usually I like to go to pizza when I'm feeling upset, so Amethyst suggests for them to get pizza. And while Steven is initially resistant, his growling stomach demands that he get some food in his belly, so they end up going inside and getting pizza. Specifically, a pizza with literally all the toppings on it, to the point where I would argue it's not even pizza anymore. It's just mush. Just doughy, cheesy mush with God knows what else is inside it, which Amethyst is salivating at, but Steven still is kind of distracted. As such, now that the pair kind of have a moment to themselves, Amethyst finally just talks to Steven. And basically she just asks him if he's alright, what's he feeling right now. And basically Steven's emotional state is, it's complicated. After all, part of the whole thing with Rose throughout the series was that when we started the series off, she was on top of this pedestal. Every one of the crystal gems deified her to some degree, and Steven constantly had to live with being in her shadow. And now the revelation of her being Pink Diamond, it's even more earth-shattering than anyone could have potentially anticipated. And basically, it makes Steven feel weird. On the one hand, he's happy that his mother didn't actually shatter anyone, but he's also really angry that she lied to everyone, and she lied to the people who she considered her closest friends. And from my perspective, I can see why she lied, but at the same time, this was a very big lie, and essentially it ensured that their entire friendship was built on the foundation of a falsity, which, yeah, I would agree that would be something confusing. And at the same time, even then, Amethyst is like, well, she was your mom. How do you feel about her? And Steven's like, I don't know. It's essentially, again, it boils down to, it's complicated. And the thing is, Steven does understand that she did do a lot of good. He does see the parts of her that were good, because she has done a lot, because she did do a lot of good stuff. After all, if it wasn't for her, then the Earth would be a new colony. If Pink Diamond hadn't gone to the ends that she did, then the Earth would just be completely lifeless, and there wouldn't be anything left on it. But by that same token, her actions are what led to the war elevating to the point when it did, and led to a lot of good people and good gems getting kind of axed. So again, it's very much complicated. He understands the good and the bad, but he's kind of wanting to just kind of write that aside, because he believes right now the more important thing is looking for Ruby. And Amethyst, upon hearing that, just gets pissed off. Basically, as she just calls Steven out and says, look, this should not be your problem. You weren't around for all this stuff, and people shouldn't be constantly having to make you deal with all this. You weren't there. You weren't a part of it. You weren't a part of it. And she ends up kind of doing a slight Freudian slip as she goes, I shouldn't have to be involved with this, which gets Steven's attention. It's like, and you, of course, you too. After all, she's your mom. Which immediately Steven's like, Amethyst, do you want to talk? And Amethyst, are you all right? And she's like, no, yes. I mean, look, this isn't about me. It's about you. But before Steven can get any more information out of Amethyst, they kind of get interrupted as as Jenny comes back, as it turns out she got back on a pizza delivery to Steven's dad, and she talked about how she got a hefty tip and how he was getting pizza with someone else, someone who seemed to have been crying as she was all red, and she talked about how they were on brooding peak or whatever, and so they're able to pick up, okay, that's where Ruby is. However, Amethyst wants to go alone as she decides that Steven should not be involved or shouldn't have all this stuff thrown on his shoulders, but Steven wants to go with, mainly because he thinks Amethyst is dealing with something and he wants to talk to her about it. But Amethyst ain't having any of that. She even shapeshifts into a helicopter and tries to abandon Steven, but Steven is able to use his floating powers to catch up to her, and basically she keeps trying to throw him off, but Steven keeps going, come on, Amethyst, talk to me. If you let your emotions out, you'll feel better. And it's just like, it's not, Amethyst is not saying one word, to the point where, and she gets so distracted with trying to throw Steven off, and they end up crashing into the water, they end up hitting the water tower, which dings up the blades in her helicopter form before they end up crashing. And so when they finally end up landing on the beach and Amethyst shapeshifts back, Amethyst says, fine, you want me to tell you how I feel? And Steven's like, I think I was pretty clear with that. And Amethyst reveals, yes, she is angry. She is dealing with shit. She is not taking any of this well. But she has to remember, but the thing is, she wasn't involved with any of this. She didn't make Rose do the things she did. She wasn't responsible for any of what Rose did. And it's not just her. It shouldn't be Steven's problem. It shouldn't be Sapphire's problem. It shouldn't be Ruby's problem. Hell, it shouldn't even be Pearl's problem. They didn't do any of this, and yet this old wound is being opened up and forced on them. They have to just go back and deal with it, and she's tired of it. That's the past, and she does not want to just throw all this onto anyone else, especially Steven. She wants to look to the future, and what she wants to do is build a new future. She doesn't want to have all this crap be thrown on anybody, basically she even wraps it up with, honestly, a great ending to the speech. She says, I'm your ding-dong best friend. I am the ding dong shining light of the future, or something like that. I'm getting it wrong. But she says that she's Steven's friend forever, and she's not gonna fall apart on him. Which, yeah, that actually makes Steven happy to know that Amethyst is in his corner like that. And it even further puts all of her antics in the day in perspective, as it showcases that she was doing all that probably for Steven's benefit. And when Steven kind of realizes that that's the reason why she's been dealing with all this and why she's been trying to help Steven, he even says, I think this makes you the most mature crystal gem. Which even makes Amethyst goes, no! I love it. But either way, with this heart-to-heart done, Amethyst and Steven do once again Amethyst and Steven do resolve to once again look for Ruby, this time with less tension between them, as they're now on the same page, and yep, the episode ends with them going to Brooder's Peak, and them seeing Garnet, and them seeing Greg and Ruby just talking. So, yeah, that's where the episode ends. So, my thoughts on these episodes. Well, first off, let's look at Now We're Only Falling Apart. And this one is definitely an episode that kind of adds some much needed clarity to the whole rose quartz pink diamond situation. After all, while a single pale rose definitely left you asking questions about what led Pink Diamond to do what she did, this episode finally gives answers, because here's the thing. Essentially, Rose Quartz was essentially playing the leader of both sides. On one side of things, she was Pink Diamond, the leader of the invading forces of the Gem Empire that was invading Earth. Earth was supposed to be her colony, and she was supposed to get it all in order. But then on the other side, she was also Rose Quartz, the leader of the Crystal Gems, a series of gems that didn't quite fit the mold, and who were fighting not only for gem kind, but for the survival of the Earth itself. It makes you kind of wonder how it all worked, and quite frankly, I think Now We're Only Falling Apart is a good way of kind of showcasing Rose's story, because, well, I think it's actually really interesting. Here's the thing. What the thing is with the reveal that Rose Quartz is Pink Diamond is that a lot of fans, whether they liked the twist or not, felt it just kind of dragged what was left of Rose's image right through the mud and tarnished it forever, to the point where many fans just now outright hate Rose. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for their opinions. Hell, even Haley's admitted that she does not like Rose Quartz as a character. But the thing is, the thing is, part of that tarnishing comes from one very important thing. We all saw Rose's character arc in reverse. I'll get more into detail on this when I finally finish these vlogs, and I admit that this is a theory that I only found on Tumblr, but it's a good theory, and it's a good theory, and it explains a lot. The thing is, Rose started as this whiny, bitchy, tyrannical monster who wanted a colony so bad that she kept pestering her siblings to get one, but then when she finally got the colony, the responsibility of it kind of hit her. And as a result, she wound up expanding her own viewpoint. She began exploring the colony and realized, okay, what I'm doing is not good, and she attempted to undo it. And when she was told, no, you can't undo it, it started giving her a backbone. And as a result, that's what led to her becoming Rose Quartz and starting the Crystal Gem Rebellion. Her plan, of course, was to get. And what I like is that essentially the rebellion grew. Because like Pearl said, the original plan with the crystal gems was just to scare any trace of the gem empire off of Earth. But by meeting Garnet, by seeing all the possibilities that could come from gems and how they could grow as well on Earth, it made Rose realize there's more to life than just what we're told. There is so much more, and that's kind of at the heart of what her rebellion was. Because even before she saw Garnet, she saw all the raw potential of Earth. And here's the thing: in a way, you could argue that part of it was fueled by selfishness, because part of the reason why Rose wanted to see the Earth at all was because she was bored. She was put in charge of this colony and was just told, stay in the moon base, you gotta live there, you gotta keep your eye on there, and you have a certain prestige you have to keep up with since you're a diamond and this is your colony. I'm getting tongue tied. But at the same time, but she wanted to see new things because she was still kind of excitable. Basically, a lot of the excited child that we saw of her from the Jungle Moon episode was still there, and I'll give credit where it's due. When we see Rose as Pink Diamond, you can actually see a lot of the energy she had as Rose transferred to Pink Diamond, which I genuinely like. She doesn't really fit the mold of what you would expect of a diamond in this sense. Like, she's excitable, she's happy, she's sociable, and she's like, oh, I want to see all the new things. Come on, let's go see it together. I actually really like that, and it does help showcase that this short, slender woman, the short, tall, slightly tall pink lady with the poofy hair is the same leader of the Crystal Gems that we've come to know from previous episodes. I like that. I do like that. It's a way of confirming it. But a lot of what led her to forming the rebellion and doing what she did was because she saw something new, something creative, something that kept growing and changing. And we've seen that Rose loves seeing how Earth can constantly make something new. After all, she said she was amazed when she learned that humans grew up. That she was amazed that they had such a power, and that led her to kind of falling in love with the planet, with what she had to see. But then, likewise, she encounters Garnet for the first time. She learns that gems of different types can fuse together and create something entirely new. And it made her realize that there is more to gems than even she knows. And she wants to see that. And the fact that this happened on Earth makes her essentially kind of deify the planet even more, because only on Earth that she learned something so unique and almost experienced it herself when she and Pearl briefly connected and almost formed rainbow quartz for the first time. She was like, oh my god, this is all so new and unique. But she also realized that because it was so out of place, that her siblings would not be okay with it. They wouldn't want to see all this. They had to essentially, that's what made her afraid for Garnet, and then what ultimately made her relieved when Garnet was okay, and what ultimately led to her saying, no, stay like this, because you're something new, you're something creative. And it's what led to Rose eventually and it's what led to her recruiting more gems to the Crystal Gems cause, because she wanted to encourage that growth in them, for them to become something new, something amazing. And Sapphire put it best. essentially Rose was following the crystal gems, not the other way around. She was so excited to see them all grow into the people they were. She wanted to see it all happen, and maybe it came from a place of selfishness. You could easily make an argument for that, but at the same time, it's not a bad thing. She said because what she was essentially doing was trying to bring out the best versions of each of these gems. Instead of trying to have them fit into a mold, she said, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go with your life? I genuinely like that. I genuinely find it interesting, and I actually do think it showcases that, like Steven said, there may be parts of her that were bad, but there was genuine good in there. What she did when she formed the crystal gems was not made out of selfishness. She was genuinely trying to make a difference, trying to help the earth, and trying to encourage gems to actually step outside of their comfort zone and become something greater. I think that I like that. I genuinely like that. And again, it helps showcase that she's not the big bad bitch that everyone seemed to think she was after this reveal. Again, she did definitely a lot of shifty things, and here, spoilers, we're gonna learn she did some more bad shit as the series goes along after this, because she still has a few because Pink Diamond still has a few skeletons in her closet, and those things are knocking at the door when wanting to be let out. So things are gonna still come up from Rose's past, but at the very least, this helps showcase that ultimately she did want to do good. She was trying to do good. And like I said, you could make a good argument for potentially that she did it from selfish reasons, because after all, she wanted to see something new because she was constantly getting bored. But in this case, what she was doing was in a way somewhat selfless, because she was genuinely trying to bring out the best in all these people. And you know what? I dig that. I think that is good. That is good writing, in my opinion. I like seeing that, and it helps showcase that it's not as cookie cutter black and white as you think it is. That ultimately Pink Diamond may not have been the best person, but she was trying to do a lot of good. She was trying to do good. She may have been selfish. She may have been selfish. She may have been lied, and some of her decisions were definitely short-sighted. But at the end of the day, she was trying to do good. It's just she didn't exactly know the best way to do it. So yeah, I like that. I genuinely like that. It's good character stuff, and it helps expand on it more, and helps complete the picture of Pink Diamond / Rose Quartz. Because after all, like I said, a lot of the questions that we got from a single Pale Rose were, why did Pink Diamond do all this? Why did she set up the crystal gems? Why did she fake her own shattering? Why did she essentially wage a war against herself? Again, I think that Now We're Only Falling Apart does a decent job at explaining those answers. It showcases her arc from going to just excitable child who is happy to be in a new playset to someone that genuinely starts caring about life and realizes that their actions have consequences, and that they need to actually and that ultimately what she's doing is wrong. It allows her to kind of want to make that growth happen. And here's a little thing I like about the episode. I like how, like I said, when the episode, there are parts of the story. Well, here's the thing. Going back to the episode, going back to Garnet's story back from when she met the Off Colors. I like that when you actually compare that story to what really happened, there are some nuggets of the truth in there. They're not exactly the same, they're not exactly the way that Garnet told them to be, or Garnet described them, but there are some nuggets of the truth. Like, for example, in Garnet's story, Rose Quartz wound up exploring the Earth and experiencing all the life on it, and wanted to enrich it and wanted to express it. And likewise, it was what made her realize that what the gems were doing was ultimately wrong. And that is what actually happened. Pink Diamond adopted the Rose Quartz persona and began exploring the Earth, and realized just how beautiful and magnificent it was. And then she realized, we're kind of going to ruin all that. And then likewise, even going to Garnet's part of the story where Rose was brought before Pink Diamond and pleaded for the Earth's survival, and Pink Diamond just laughed at her and told her to screw off. That also sort of happened, though not exactly the way Garnet described it. In this case, Pink Diamond did plead for Earth. She did try to say, look, this isn't a good idea. We should just abandon ship. But her siblings told her, no, we're not doing that. Just go back. No, we're not doing that. You got to stay there and keep doing what you're doing. And if you really care, and if you really want to preserve the life, we'll just take some humans and preserve them in a zoo over here. There is, because, which again is a good parallel to Garnet's story, because yes, Pink Diamond did plead for the Earth's case with the other diamonds, and she was blown off. Nobody gave a shit what she had to say, even though she was supposed to be in charge of this colony. Essentially, she was essentially just a false monarch. I'm trying to remember the term. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that. I had to remember the term. But yeah, essentially, Pink Diamond was just a figurehead. Yes, Earth was called her colony, but ultimately she had no real say on what actually happened in it. Even if she wanted to stop it, she was not allowed to stop. She was not allowed to. So again, I like that they were actually keeping that that there were some nuggets of the truth in the story that Garnet told. It's just that the rest of it was clearly fabricated. Odds are that what the story that she was told was something that either Rose or Pearl or someone else either told, and Garnet just passed it along as fact. As Sapphire said, Garnet just implicitly trusted Rose because Rose encouraged what Ruby and Sapphire had and wanted to see it bloom and flourish. So she just took everything that Rose said as fact. She put so much faith in her, which I'll get back to how that faith plays back into Garnet's character when we get to her when I get to the end of the vlog series. But otherwise, again, I like that little bit. But at the end of the day, I like how Now We're Only Falling Apart really does exemplify, or really does help complete the picture about why Pink Diamond did what she did, what led her to forming the crystal gems, and so on and so forth. And I think it's genuinely nice. Essentially just this pampered kind of spoiled person who was given a hard dose of reality and decided, no, I want to actually decided, no, I don't want to be this thing anymore, and tried to change. And that led her to becoming Rose Quartz. Again, that doesn't mean that Rose always did the right thing. Even if she was trying to help others and preserve life, she did make mistakes. The Gem War was definitely one of those mistakes, because it led to a lot of crystal gems being shattered. And all of that you can definitely attribute to Rose Quartz / Pink Diamond, since she was the one that put it all in motion, and even her attempted shattering led to even greater consequences that even she hadn't foreseen. Because after all, because part of the reason why Pink Diamond wanted to fake her own shattering was because she wanted to give the Earth to the crystal gems, and as long as Pink Diamond was around, that couldn't happen. So she allowed herself to be shattered. Or in reality poofed, so not only that she could be Rose Quartz all the time when she reformed, but so that her friends and to potentially just end the war by ending the threat of the bad guy. Though sadly, she underestimated just how badly this would affect her siblings. So again, it doesn't mean it justifies everything she did. Like Steven said, she did good things and she did bad things. And while her actions did at the end of the day save the Earth, there were still a lot of consequences. Consequences that the crystal gems are still facing to this day, which I like, which again, it helps showcase that this, at the end of the day, Rose genuinely was not the person anyone thought she was. And that ultimately her pedestal is now forever broken. There's no rebuilding it. It's never going to come back. There's never going to build her back up. And while the crystal gems could still thank Rose for a lot of the good that she did, there's a lot of bad that they also cannot overlook. So I dig that. It really does put things in perspective and does kind of change how Rose can be viewed from this point on, while also giving us a good character piece as to what led her to becoming this person that wanted to save Earth so much and cared for her fellow gems and people. I dig that. So on the whole, I think Now We're Only Falling Apart is a genuinely good episode. It's not amazing, it's not great, but it's a nice follow-up to everything that does kind of help answer a lot of the questions that we as viewers would probably have regarding the situation. So again, I dig it. I dig it. I think it's a nice episode. As for what's your problem? This, I think, is another good follow-up because it starts dealing with more of the character of the character fallouts from this revelation. And while we did get some of that, and while Now We're Only Falling Apart did a good job at showcasing the consequences involving Garnet, because she held Rose in the highest regard, even knowing some of the shadier stuff that she did. Now that, but with her learning that Rose Quartz was Pink Diamond, it essentially broke any lasting faith in her. And essentially, since that was kind of the glue that held her together, she wound up literally falling apart. And so now we saw some of the emotional turmoil with Ruby and Sapphire, with Sapphire getting emotional. And by the time she calmed down and realized that this wasn't as bad as she thought it was too little, too late. She said some terrible things to Ruby, and she's just like, "Oh no, I can't fix this." Especially when by the time that Pearl and Steven return to the temple, Ruby's already gone. But likewise again, what I love with What's Your Problem is that it's a very good character piece for Amethyst as well, because she's right. This whole thing with Rose Quartz being Pink Diamond, it shouldn't be Steven's problem. It shouldn't even be Amethyst's problem. They didn't do anything. Yeah, like, they were never there for the Gem War. They became a part of the Crystal Gems long after the Gem War was over, and yet they're the ones that are constantly having to deal with the consequences. And it's not their fault. It's Rose's. She's the one that did all this crap. She's the one that lied to everybody. She's the one that helped jumpstart the war. It's all of this is something that she did, and yet they're constantly dealing with the consequences. And Amethyst, and on top of that, Amethyst is right to also include Pearl and Garnet in that whole thing, because they had no idea. They were just following orders. Okay, Pearl had some idea, but she was just trying to help her diamond, the person that she swore to make happy. But ultimately, the thing is, all the decisions that Rose made, she made by herself. They're decisions that she came to. They're things that she wanted to do. Pearl was just trying to follow orders. And what I love about Amethyst kind of exemplifying this is that, like Steven says, it shows how mature and how far she's come as a character, because this revelation does have an effect on her. She's still clearly going through this shit, and she's angry that that all of this is still being thrown on her shoulders, because it shouldn't be on her shoulders. She had nothing to do with it, but the fact that she is constantly being thrown all this trauma and being told she has to carry it, it gets to her, and it makes her angry, and she doesn't want to keep dealing with it. But then likewise, being put in that situation gives her empathy for Steven, because odds are, sorry, Chinny just jumped on the bed, odds are he's probably dealing with some worse shit right now, because after all, Rose was his mother. Imagine how essentially Amethyst took the situation and thinks, I feel like shit. I have to deal with this problem that I shouldn't have to deal with at all. So how does Steven feel? After all, it was his mother. He learned the revelation. He's probably going through worse stuff than I am. I want to be there for him. And what I like about that is that throughout the episode, you see her just trying to help him. And in a way, you can tell maybe she's projecting a little onto Steven, but she genuinely is trying to help him, because she knows if the situations were reversed, she would want someone to talk to. And so she's trying to get that from Steven. She's trying to have him have a good time, not focus on anything else. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had to take a phone call. But yeah, like I said, Amethyst is genuinely trying to help Steven, because she knows that this is a lot to take in. And the fact that it's being forced on, and the fact that he essentially it's all this essentially being forced on him, it's not fair. She genuinely thinks it's not fair. And so basically what she wants to do is, I want nothing to do with that thing. I'm not saying that to make it sound like she's being heartless, because she's not trying to be. The whole reason she's doing all this is because she feels like she knows what Steven's going through, and just wants to help him. She is trying her best to help Steven, and she wants to, and she doesn't like that Steven is taking on all the responsibility, is taking on all the grief, even though he shouldn't. He doesn't need to take on all the grief. After all, he wasn't there. He had nothing to do with this. He was not responsible for what Rose did. And ultimately, while Amethyst is still dealing with her shit, the last thing she wants to do is make Steven feel like he has to deal with that shit. Sorry if you're wondering why my arm is over here. I'm petting Chindy, which she's not petting me anymore. She doesn't let me pet her anymore. But again, she knows that if this is how she feels from the revelation, she doesn't want Steven to be like this either. And so rather than go to him and talk about her problems, she tries to have the opposite happen. She's trying to get Steven to talk about his problems. He's trying to let her know, she's trying to let him know, I understand what you're going through, and you don't need to deal with all this stuff. It's not your problem. You shouldn't have to feel responsible for all this. And if you feel like it is your problem, I'm here. I'm going to help you. I want to be there for you. I want to do whatever I can. And above all else, I don't want you to have to feel like you have to take on any more problems. That's why when Steven tries questioning her about her state of mind, she gets defensive. Not because she doesn't want to talk about it, but because she thinks Steven, you're dealing with enough right now. The last thing I want to do is add more. I know what I'm going through. It sucks, but you're going through stuff too, and I want to be there for you. I love that. It's good. It's really damn good. And the final scene when Amethyst finally just explodes at Steven and says, I'm not going to fall apart on you. It's genuinely touching and sweet and caring, and really does show how far she's come in her character arc. It's beautiful, it's nice, it leads to a genuinely sweet moment between her and Steven, and even the ending when Steven points out that she's now officially the most mature crystal gem, and her whining and going, no, I love that! It's sweet! But on top of that, this episode also offers us another hint, something that becomes important in the follow-up series, Steven Universe Future, because the instant that when Amethyst tries getting Steven to open up, he clams up, and when he starts thinking about his problems, he says, actually, none of that's important right now. I have to think about Ruby, which is what leads to Amethyst exploding at him, which is what leads to Amethyst calling him out and saying, well, what are you dealing with? And then likewise, Steven doesn't even answer that question. He instead notices that something's wrong with Amethyst, and he's like, Amethyst, are you okay? And so, rather than being left alone with his thoughts, he instead tries to help Amethyst with hers. I love that, because it's another hint that when Steven is in emotional distress, he deflects. He immediately starts trying to focus on someone else. I'm gonna keep petting Chindy. And so as a result of that, it allows him to ignore his problems, to focus on others. It's actually a little creepy when you stop and think about it, and it's a nice subtle way of showcasing that Steven is not well either. That there is something going on in his head, and it's not going well. And like I said, and hopefully, as I've showcased in previous vlogs, it's always been there. It's always been beneath the surface, but with recent events, it's getting bigger. And the more Steven tries to bury it, the more explosive it'll be when it all comes out. So again, I like it. It's good stuff. So on the whole, now we're only falling apart. I think it's a good episode, as it really does act as a nice follow-up to A Single Pale Rose, as we finally get the chance to still learn more about Pink Diamond, what led her to becoming Rose Quartz, while also giving us some good stuff with Ruby and Sapphire, as we see how they take the news that Rose Quartz is Pink Diamond. And then likewise, What's Your Problem That also kind of helps jumpstart what eventually will happen with Ruby and Sapphire, while also giving us some genuinely good character stuff with the other crystal gems, as we see more of the fallout, and about how they're dealing with it in various ways, especially with Steven and Amethyst, as Amethyst is taking her trauma and essentially saying, no, I'm not going to force this on anyone, and tries to help Steven with his, because she probably knows what he's going through and doesn't want him to deal with it alone. It's good stuff, really great, and on the whole, it's very well, and on the whole, I love it. I love both these episodes as a result. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. So yeah, I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope to see you next week as we see Steven and Amethyst catch up with Ruby, as well as seeing an old friend return to the Crystal Gems. So till then, I hope you have a good night, and as always, take care. Ginny's a good girl.